more like a normal place. But change, not just that kind of change, because that's something you kind of have a little control over, right? Change is going to happen. It's going to happen whether we like it or whether we don't like it. Everything around us changes. Everything changes. People change. I heard somebody say one time, people don't change. I beg to differ. People do change. I went, so I skipped my 10th high school reunion. That was just a little bit soon for me. Just skipped it. Got the invite, but I skipped it. But the 20th came around, and I thought, you know what? I want to go. What a blast I had. I had a blast. And what happened? Well, those people changed. In high school, those who were all cliquey and had their little stuff, we grew up. We were different. We were happy to see each other. We were happy to hear about their life. Oh, how many kids you have, whatever. You know, one of the girls in my graduating class was one of 12 children in her family when she was growing up. And they gave out awards at my 20th high school reunion. Yes, the class of 82, that's the best one. If you weren't in there, I'm sorry. Dan's in there. Woo! There's two of us, the rest of you just wish you could have been. We were a little bit spunky and silly, and so they gave out awards. You know, one was for the person who just didn't seem to change. And that was a guy named Jim Cook. And my dad did an appraisal for him and his family one time, and he came home and says, hey, I did an appraisal for the Cooks. I'm like, Jim Cook? Yeah. Well, Jim Cook looks like he did when he was 18, 20 years later. So yeah, we gave him the award. He did not change. Wow. And the girl who was one of 12 kids, they gave her the Breeders' Award because she had 12 kids, but not all hers. She had 6 of her own, and she remarried and had 6 of his. He had 6, she had 6, so we were like, no, you get the Breeders' Award. And she was so embarrassed and mortified and didn't want it. Too bad. You got it. Silly things, because people change. There was one guy that didn't change in the food line. My wife was there when he said something stupid. And he says, I just asked him how he was doing. I knew who he was. I called him by name. He looks at me. Were we other friends? I said, nope. And we're probably not going to be now. And then he realized what an egghead he had been just now. Oh, no. I said, and we just kept going down the line. And later, and I felt bad for him, later in the evening, he was sitting all by himself off somewhere, and I thought, well, you did it to yourself, Ferdinand, the bull. But anyway, people change, right? Some for the better, some not so much. Circumstances change. You don't think so? Are you working the same job you were working 25, 35, 40 years ago? Dan's like, yeah, I am. Shut up. Anyway, the outlier in the group. Same field, but is it the same place?
Same place.
Look at that. That's
26 years, bro.
Give that guy a watch. Casey, you've been there a long time. Look at this. My whole example's gone to pot. Let's move on. And Paul, too. Look at me. I'm getting worse. Let's move on. Landscapes change. And they do.
There goes the word.
Landscapes change. At my parents' house, those of you who have been there, you were probably not there 50 years ago. Well, I was. Because my granddad built that house. And between the two houses there, my uncle Howard Tiller built and lived in the other house. And the slope now that's between the two wasn't like that. It was absolutely cut. And just the landscape just changed. It just shifted, and no mudslides or anything. It just shifted, and now it's a slope. It wasn't. Landscapes change. They do. Governments change. Change is something we must learn to accept because it's going to happen anyway. It's going to happen anyway. There's nothing you can do about it. There's a principle in the world. Our pastor, when we lived in Fort Worth, Texas, advocated this idea, and he's not wrong. And you can see it in nature even. It's grow or die. If it isn't growing, it's dying, or it's already dead. And this just happens. Change is constant. Plants, animals, everything constantly change. It's always happening, this thing called change. It's a thing. Now, if you're not sure that what I'm saying is true, take a look at a picture of yourself from 5, 10, 20 years ago. And then look at one from today. I'm telling you, change is a thing. We might not like it. A little bit temperature sensitive up here lately. Wasn't always the case. There it is. I told someone at work that when I was a lot younger, my hair was really light brown, blondish. And they couldn't see it. So later in the day, I pulled up a picture of myself when I was pretty young, and they went, you did have blonde hair. Had, past tense, yeah, all the blonde hair fell out, and what was left was not blonde. I was two-toned as I got older. But change happens. This is true for almost everything that we know. Except one thing. The Lord never changes. He does not change. He's the same today as he was, make up a number, 100 billion years ago. And he's going to be just the same that many years into the future. He does not change. Numbers chapter 23, the 19th verse, the second part of the verse. This is the prophet Balaam talking to the folks who hired him to curse Israel. It's quite a story. There's a lot of interesting things that happen here, not the least of which is a donkey talking to the prophet and him talking back. Balaam says about the Lord, has he said and will not do? Has he spoken and will not make it good? Wow. Those are rhetorical questions because the answer is obvious. If God said it, you can believe it. If he promised, he's going to keep his word. He's going to keep his promise. It's just as obvious as anything. I saw some archaeologist guy, he was trying to find an ancient river that Moses mentioned in the Old Testament, having been one of the rivers that was originally in the Garden of Eden. And this guy is wandering around the driest part of Saudi Arabia, and he comes upon this place, and there's it's kind of a hilltop, not a giant hill, just a rise, I guess. And there's rocks all over the place. Okay? These happen to be some large rocks. And right at the base of this, looked like something busted these rocks. There are watermarks all over these stones, and they're heavy. And the guy put his little drone up in the air, you know, those things that have the little cameras on them. You don't need a helicopter anymore to film. You just buy one of those things and up it went. And you could clearly see a riverbed. But it started on the top of this little rise coming out of these rocks. Now, he was confused, in my opinion. He's trying to figure out what it is, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that's one of those that Moses hit. When Israel was said, we're out here, we have no water, and you brought us out here to die. And the Lord said, strike that rock. And the Bible says it broke, and water came out. And it wasn't a little bit of water, because they had to water those many people, 2 million plus probably, and their livestock. That has to be a lot of water. It can't just be a little fountain. And when he put that drone in the air, that thing went all the way, and so they started following it. They went for like 150 miles or more, and it ended up emptying into the Euphrates River. And it was fairly wide, and you could see where it had washed. So it flowed for some time. I don't know how to predict that, and I don't want to predict how long, but it was very interesting that it isn't there anymore. It was there for a while. He's God. He does not change. He needed to put water there. He knew how to make it. He knew how to put that there. He was not confused. In Malachi chapter 3, the 6th verse, the Lord says through the prophet Malachi, I am the Lord. And the New King James says, I do not change. The King James says, I change not. Amen. The message is the same. He does not change. He's God. He is unchangeable. He doesn't change. So how is that important to us? Well, if you're facing something and you need healing, and you read in the Bible, and he healed back then, well, he can heal now. Well, he did a miracle for someone, well, he can do a miracle now. Well, he made a way when there just seemed to be all this stuff against these people. Well, he can do that now. He does not change. He is the same. So because he doesn't change, we can count on him to always be the same. Well, why is that important? Let me ask you a question. Have you ever known someone that had so many mood changes, you weren't sure who you were going to meet the next time you ran into them? Anybody ever known someone like that? I have in my life. That's unstable in all kinds of ways. And you can't really count on them because you don't know who they're going to be. God isn't like that. He's always the same. You can depend on that. That is so important. Or maybe you knew someone who really holds grudges, and they're holding one against you, but you really need forgiveness from them. Good luck. God isn't a grudge holder. He doesn't change. Now, he has made some promises in John chapter 14 in the New Testament. Jesus speaking in the 14th verse, and he says, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. Now, that's a pretty broad thing. He didn't say, if you ask for something to eat, if you ask for a ride to church, he didn't specify that. He said anything. And in John chapter 16, the 24th verse, Jesus says, ask and you shall receive. Now I'm paraphrasing the rest of the verse. And he ends up saying this statement, quote, that your joy may be full. Well, this one is for all those folks who don't believe that God really wants you to be happy. There are people like that. I have met them. I've talked to them. I've tried to counsel them, help them over the years. There's a lot of people, they don't think God wants to do anything good for them because they feel like they don't deserve it. Newsflash, I'm going to say this in Arkansas lingo. There ain't nobody worthy. There really isn't. The nicest person you can imagine is still not worthy. We fall so short of the goodness and the glory of God. It's not even a contest. But he doesn't do it because you're worthy. He does it because he loves you. And then there are people who really don't love themselves, and so they can't imagine that God would love them because they don't even love themselves. That's a sad situation. But it doesn't change the fact that he loves them. Jesus said to ask, and you would receive that your joy may be full. He is saying that he wants to bless you with some of the things that you want. Not just what he thinks is good for you. Is anyone, okay, I know there's people in this room that have experienced this. I know I have. So, I'm a kid. My parents would say, what do you want for Christmas? Hot dog. I'm all excited now. Because I've watched all the television commercials and I know what I want. Because I was definitely a target for those ads. Okay? I want some Rock'em Sock'em robots. Yeah, because I want those. I just wanted to see them get hit and then go. Okay, I want Hot Wheels. I need a new Hot Wheels track. And I'd just go down the list. And my sister would go down the list. And we knew we weren't going to get everything. But that's why the list was this long. Because we were padding the stats. We're hoping to get some of these. We knew we weren't going to get them all. And then I can remember being at my grandma's house. And she would say, so what do you want for Christmas? Oh boy, oh boy. Well, after a while I learned to stop that oh boy thing. Because Grandma was going to get me socks and underwear. A bag of t-shirts. Maybe some gloves. You know the gloves that have the little fur in the inside? You remember those leather gloves with the fur inside? Yeah, because you could ask, but you weren't going to get what you wanted. And she would always say, well, you needed those. Well, God, sometimes he does give you what you need. But he wants to give you the things you want. Now, that's not like he's like some, patsy, oh, I want some new shoes. You have to have faith, and you need to not be heaping to your own lust. Now, I've joked about it before, about people every week. I think I can count on them. Every week. I'm not sure what days the lotteries have their drawings. There's so many anymore. There's probably one every day. I don't know. But there's somebody praying every day, oh, Lord, let me win the lottery. I'm going to do some really good with it. They're not.
No.
He knows that. And some weeks nobody wins at all. That's heaping to my own lust. That's what James wrote, James chapter 4. And he says, you ask amiss. You're heaping to your own lust. That's the way the King James words it. The New King James says, trying to fulfill your own pleasures. Well, that's worded a little different. I think the King James is more on target because it's just something, it comes from lust, not just something I want. It's different. It's like a covetous thing. And James goes on to write, don't let that guy think he's even going to get what he asked for. Why? Because you asked amiss. Now, God knows what we want, and he wants to give us good things. And that's not what but the heap into your own lust part, that's not what Jesus was talking about in John chapter 14 when he says, ask anything and I will do it for you. There was a lady, about it had to be 7 years ago now, it was before COVID. She went to our church 7 or 8 years ago. Really nice young lady. We all knew her then, and we loved her and still do. Friends with her on Facebook still. She now lives in Missouri. And the radio program K-Love, the Christian radio channel K-Love, had this contest. And you could, if you submitted, I don't remember if they had to submit it online or they had to call in. I don't remember that part. But the contest was you win 2 airline tickets to anywhere in the U.S. And there were probably people going, oh man, I need a vacation. And so they're all trying. And this girl had recently had a baby. And her mom she hadn't seen her mom in several years. And her mom had not seen the baby. And she wanted her mom to see the baby. And she prayed. And she asked the Lord to help her win those tickets because she couldn't afford to fly to South Carolina, I think is where she went. And so she entered the contest and asked the Lord to give it for her. And guess who won? She did. She did. Now, does that mean there weren't other people who had a need like that as well? No, it doesn't really mean that. But the Lord saw her situation and said, this works for you. Yeah. Here you go. And in the process, He's building her faith. And she was so full of gratitude that God did that for her. It was a whole package. This is like the best thing. Now, and I did not enter that contest, I'll just say it like that, but if I had, no, it would have been, oh wow, I'm going to Hawaii. I'm going to go and get a tan, work on my tan. I'm just going to get away from, it would have been an entirely different reason, right? Well, she had a need, and the Lord said, yeah, I give you that, and her joy was full. She was so overjoyed, and then she had a great visit with her family when she took the baby, and it was just great. When she came back, she was just beaming smiles. Well, He gave her that because that would make her joyful. You see the difference? He wants to give good things to His children. And He doesn't change. So if He did it for her, He can do it for me. He can do it for you. God does not change. You can count on Him every time to be exactly who He is. He's not going to change. He's God. He's holy. So He's not going to do anything unseemly. He's amazing. If you're facing a difficult situation, you can take your request to Him and know that He will hear you and He will answer you. One of the near-death experience things I saw just the day before yesterday, the man is going, he had an appendix rupture or almost rupture, and so he was going in for an appendectomy, and he said he didn't remember them putting the mask on or anything. They wheeled him in the room, they're still talking to him, and he said all of a sudden, he said everybody went blurry, and Jesus walks in the door. And he knew it was Jesus. And he went to look at the others, and they're all blurry. And the Lord walks up to him. He said, He put His hand on me, and He says, well, I've come to answer your prayer. And he says, what prayer, Lord? Well, it was a prayer He prayed 40 years ago. The Lord will answer every prayer. His timing is something else. We've talked about that before. And the next thing he knows, he's having this conversation with God, with the Lord, and he felt like it was a really long conversation. And then the Lord sends him back. And all of a sudden, he hears beeping, and they've been shocking him, and then one of the people says, he's back, and he's thinking, I'm back, where did I go? And he says he's looking, and the Lord isn't there, and everybody else he can see. Well, they told him his heart was gone, and they were trying to revive him for several minutes. Well, he felt like he was with the Lord for hours. What am I saying? The Lord will answer your prayers. And the Lord did. He answered his prayer. Why did he choose to tell him that and do that? I don't have the faintest idea. But he will answer our prayers. We have to be faithful and confident and know that he's going to. Maybe you want to change in your life, change your job or some other kind of circumstance. Take it to him in prayer and then watch him open doors and give you that change. Sometimes you need a change and you don't know it till you have the change, and then you're like, wow, this is so much better. He's faithful. He wants you to ask because he wants to answer so your joy can be full. Let's stand.